Welcome to the weekly roundup of Air News Daily Bulletins, the go-to place to catch up with all the stories that made the news last week.
Firstly, UAE carrier Etihad Airways will be introducing a seasonal service between its Abu Dhabi home and the Bangladeshi capital Dhaka commencing on the 26th of June. Flights will operate 4 times weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturdays using the airline's Boeing 777s. On the 7th of May, Cabo Verde Airlines will make a welcome return to Recife in Brazil when it commences twice-weekly services from its prior hub. Flights will operate on Thursdays and Saturdays, returning from Brazil the following day, and will be flown using the carrier's Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. They last served Recife in 2020. Iberia Express will resume its seasonal service between Madrid and Reykjavik, the Icelandic capital, from the 6th of June. Flights will operate twice weekly on Wednesdays and Saturdays until the end of August using the carrier's A320 family of aircraft. Singapore low-cost operator Scoot will be introducing a twice-weekly service between its Singapore Changi home and Belitung Island in Indonesia. Flights will commence on the 3rd of May and operate on Wednesdays and Sundays. The airline will also introduce a 3 times weekly service from Singapore to Pontiana from the 29th of June, offering flights on Mondays, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Both routes will be flown using the airline's Embraer E2s. They look lovely, don't they? Starlux Airlines of Taiwan will launch a 5 times per week service between its Taipei home and Denpasar, Bali from the 1st of October. Flights will operate every day except Wednesdays and Saturdays using the carrier's A321neos. Romania's Anima Wings will be introducing a twice-weekly service from the 2nd of June between Cluj-Napoca and Thessaloniki in Greece. Flights will operate on Tuesdays and Saturdays using the airline's Airbus A220s. Malaysia Airlines is introducing a daily service between Kuala Lumpur and Shenzhen in China from the 1st of July. And from the 8th of July, the Malayan flag carrier will also introduce a daily service to Changsha from its home hub. Fukuoka in Japan will also benefit from 5 flights per week from the Malaysian capital commencing on the 2nd of September. All flights will be flown using the carrier's brand new Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft. UK long-haul carrier Virgin Atlantic will be bolstering its schedule to Bengaluru from the 1st of June, when it will add 2 additional services per week, bringing a total of 13 weekly flights to the southern Indian city from its London Heathrow home. It's proving very popular, Bengaluru. British Airways are also increasing frequency. Seoul-based Asiana Airlines has commenced a 3 times weekly service from its home hub to the Hungarian capital Budapest. Flights operate on Wednesdays, Fridays and Sundays using the carrier's Airbus A350s. And finally, Hungarian carrier Wizz Air has announced the introduction of a 3 times weekly service between London Luton and Turin commencing on the 9th of June. Flights will operate on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays. The low-cost carrier has also confirmed that Turin will become its 7th base in Italy from the 14th of September, and they plan to have 2 aircraft based there to serve Barcelona, Bilbao, Madrid, Malaga, Naples, Rome, and last but not least, Valencia. It's a growing list of destinations for Turin. That's your routes roundup for this week. We'll be back with you tomorrow with our regular bulletin and look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now. The UK's biggest airport, London Heathrow, experienced a 10% increase in transfer passengers in March, helped, bizarrely, by the conflict in the Middle East. The airport welcomed a total of 6.6 million customers through its doors last month, representing a very respectable 6.9% increase on the same month a year ago. The London Gateway, however, remains constrained by a lack of available runway slots, so its growth is slower than some of its European rivals, and I'm sure the folk at Heathrow are hating that. I don't know about you, but I think it's time to stop dithering and get on with the construction of the long overdue 3rd runway. Do let me know what you think. American Airlines is set to make a return to Venezuela after a 6-year absence as the carrier prepares for its subsidiary Envoy Air to commence a daily service between Miami and the Venezuelan capital, Caracas. The Fort Worth-based carrier has said that it is in the final stages of preparations and that, subject to government approval from both countries, flights will commence using an Embraer E175 by the 30th of April. At a recent projects forum in the Russian city of Kazan, the Tupolev Design Bureau, which is controlled by Russia's United Aircraft Corporation, unveiled its concept for a long-haul commercial airliner it has dubbed the Tu-454. This is the first new airliner project for the Design Bureau since the Tu-204 and Tu-334 in the late 80s and early 90s, and at the moment appears to be at the mock-up stage only, with UAC saying very little about the project and its potential timeline. Russia, isolated by international sanctions following its invasion of Ukraine in 2022, is now in a world where it needs to rely heavily on domestic production to meet its future requirements. And they are responding. The MS-21, which was launched in 2017, has been completely redesigned, removing Western components such as engines and avionics, and is once again working through the regulatory certification process. So whilst many onlookers are not convinced that the new aircraft from the Tupolev stable will ever become a reality, we're quite certain that the Kremlin will no doubt be keen to see this develop further for a number of reasons, not least the long-term future of its aircraft manufacturing industry that prior to the sanctions was definitely floundering. Senior executive departures seem to be on the upward trajectory in aviation at the moment, with South African Airways being the latest airline to announce the departure of its CEO, John Lamola, who is expected to leave the airline in the next couple of weeks. Lamola has been at the carrier's helm since 2022 and has helped steer the flag carrier through some pretty tough challenges, and he's done a pretty good job without a doubt. The airline has asked Matshela Shisebe, who heads up the airline's Airchef subsidiary, to take up the role of interim CEO until such time as a permanent replacement can be found. The cargo division of Colombian flag carrier Avianca has added services between Quito and Miami, using capacity from its relationship with Amazon's Prime Air to support perishable exports. The service is available 5 times per week and is in direct response to growing demand for the export of perishables, most notably flowers. Avianca and Amazon first started working together in 2025, and this new arrangement enhances their cooperation beyond Colombia for the first time. And finally, our friends at Loganair have announced the introduction of twice-weekly services between Jersey in the Channel Islands and Bordeaux in southwest France. Flights operated using the airline's Embraer E145s commence on the 19th of June, operating on Mondays and Fridays until the 5th of October. That's great for a long weekend, or even for a short week, I guess. That's all for today. We will return with more news tomorrow, so stay safe in the meantime, and we'll see you then. Have a great day. Virgin Atlantic has confirmed that it is expecting to introduce its first A350 Starlink-equipped aircraft during May, and will deploy the aircraft on its prestigious London Heathrow to New York's John F. Kennedy route. The airline has accelerated the installation programme of the Starlink high-speed Wi-Fi system and hopes to have all of its A350s equipped to offer customers free Wi-Fi by early summer. The carrier's Dreamliners and A330s will also be fitted with the Starlink satellite technology, and the airline hopes that the work will be complete by the end of 2027. After 10 years of research, customer feedback and 2 years of design development, Atlanta-based Delta Airlines is introducing its next generation Delta One suite on its new Airbus A350-1000 aircraft and retrofitting it to its A330 fleet for the first time as part of a nose-to-tail refresh, which means that customers in all cabins will receive enhanced comfort and entertainment. Over a 5-year period, the carrier expects around 800 of its fleet to be fitted with the new interiors, which look to be like they're going to be a bit of a hit with customers if these images are anything to go by. Brazzaville-based EC Air is reported to have made a return to operations yesterday after a 5-month suspension of services that took effect in November 2025. The Congolese carrier has been blighted by operational, safety, financial and regulatory challenges, blimey that's a list isn't it, since its inception in March 2011, and has in fact spent more time grounded than conveying passengers and cargo across its network. The resumption of flights, according to the carrier's website, sees twice daily domestic services 6 days a week between Brazzaville and Pont-Noir on board the airline's sole Boeing 737. Given the carrier's track record, customers may be reluctant to book flights in fear of a sudden cancellation. Who could blame them? But we can only hope that the airline's fortunes are looking up in a notoriously difficult part of the world to operate, that's for sure. Despite the current situation in the Middle East, Etihad Airways has announced its largest expansion into a single market in recent years, with the news that it intends to commence services to no less than 5 additional cities in China. Shanghai, Guangzhou, Chengdu, Hangzhou and Shenzhen will join the Abu Dhabi carrier's network in a phased programme starting in October through the winter timetable, joining the airline's existing service to Beijing's Dajing Airport. We will of course bring you all the specifics in next Monday's Route Special show. Good reason to tune in. All is not well in the Argentine capital Buenos Aires for the staff of relative newcomer Fly Bondi. Always confuses me that that's in Argentina, but there we go. Whose unions state that the 8-year-old ultra low-cost carrier's staff haven't received their March salaries, despite reassurances from the airline's senior executives that they would get paid. Staff have voiced ongoing concerns that the carrier's financial position has deteriorated with the weakening Argentine peso and, of course, rising fuel costs across the world. The carrier claims an exceptional administrative error had occurred, which is why they hadn't paid the staff, but many are sceptical about this claim, and this could mean that strike action isn't far from the doors of this troubled airline. We'll let you know how things develop. And finally, Hong Kong's Cathay Pacific Airways has sent a second group of young explorers on an inspiring cultural and aviation study tour across China from Urumqi in the west to Xi'an, home to the Terracotta Warriors, no less, providing participants the chance to broaden their understanding of aviation, foster new cultural relations, and hopefully a desire to become a member of the next generation of aviation professionals. We love this. It's a great way to engage with young people and to inspire passion in a truly remarkable industry that it's been my privilege to work in for 40 years. Bravo to Cathay Pacific. Thanks for watching. We'll land with you again tomorrow with more news from the world of commercial aviation. In the meantime, you go steady. Bye for now. At this week's Aircraft Interiors Expo in Hamburg, Air Canada has unveiled its new cabin interiors for its Airbus A321 XLRs and 787-10 Dreamliners. There are lots of similarities with the Delta Airlines upgrades that we shared with you yesterday, but we are fans of these new products from the Montreal-based Canadian flag carrier. And they now join a host of airlines frantically investing in cabin upgrades, particularly for the much sought-after premium customers. The carrier describes the new look as fundamentally redefining the experience of flying with Air Canada, and we can't disagree, and are certain that customers and crew will respond positively to these chic new onboard facilities, which will eventually be fitted to the carrier's entire fleet. That's great news. Trinidad and Tobago's President Christine Kangaloo has made some changes to the management structure at state-owned Caribbean Airlines by switching control from the country's finance ministry over to their colleagues in transport, which some might say is flawlessly logical. But the airline's finances, which in fairness have always been a bit of a challenge, do you remember the BWE days, remains one of the priorities that Eli Zakor, the Transport Minister, will need to keep a firm control on as he works to improve operational efficiency and connectivity to put the airline on a firmer footing in what can only be described as challenging times. Hong Kong International Airport has once again been named the busiest cargo airport in the world by Airports Council International. The trade association's data for last year showed that Hong Kong has retained its top spot for the 15th time since 2010, which is good going in my eyes, especially when you consider just how many other Chinese cities export huge volumes of freight every year. For the number crunchers amongst you, the airport handled almost 5.1 million metric tons of cargo, an increase of 2.7% over 2024. I'm glad I didn't have to lift any of it. US plane maker Boeing delivered a total of 143 aircraft for the first quarter of 2026, demonstrating that the company is maintaining pace following last year's recovery. Of the deliveries, 114 were 737s, 6 were 767s, with 8 777s and 15 Dreamliners, all now with their new operators. German leisure carrier Condor has begun a new commercial codeshare with Romanian flag carrier Tarom, in which both airlines will now market each other's flights and apply their flight codes across both carrier networks. This gives Condor a new source of transfer customers at its German hubs, as well as access to destinations in Eastern Europe that it doesn't serve itself. And Tarom benefits from wider West European access, as well as seamless transatlantic connectivity. This is a logical partnership, which is likely to bear fruit for both parties in our opinion. In separate news, Condor has confirmed that its plans to serve Abu Dhabi this summer have now been dropped, citing the obvious challenges currently being experienced in the region, and we can't blame them. And finally, Muscat-based Oman Air has confirmed that it will resume a once daily service between its home and its near neighbour Dubai from Saturday. The route was temporarily suspended because of the conflict in the region, and we can only hope that the madness will soon end so that we can all get back to trying to survive in peace. Which is why it's good to see Oman Air heading back to Dubai. That's all for today. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Have a great day. Troubled US ultra-low-cost operator Spirit Airlines, that had hopes of exiting Chapter 11 bankruptcy, may have been dealt a fatal blow by the conflict in the Middle East. Bloomberg have reported that sources have told the publication that given the rising costs of fuel, the beleaguered airline's days could well be numbered. It is understood that discussions with creditors are being had, but that there is a real possibility that the carrier may end up in a state of liquidation by the end of this week, i.e. Sunday. If this does sadly happen, they may well have the country's president to thank for making things great for them. Not. In happier news for US airlines, the planned merger between Allegiant and Sun Country, which we reported on earlier this year, has now received the green light from the US Department for Transportation following the granting of an exemption on Wednesday in Washington, D.C. This effectively clears the way for the two carriers to become one under the Allegiant brand as soon as the 13th of May, assuming of course that the stars continue to be aligned. We wish both carriers a very happy marriage. The Lufthansa Group has announced the acceleration of its strategy to combat the rising costs of Jet A1, which since the start of the war against Iran has more than doubled, as well as the impact of industrial action by some parts of the company's workforce. The Frankfurt-based airline group has confirmed that with immediate and permanent effect, the capacity provided by Lufthansa's CityLine is being removed from the flying programme, which effectively means the end of CityLine as a business. Additionally, and as expected, at the end of the summer timetable in October, the company will retire its 4 remaining Airbus A340-600s and will now ground 2 of its Boeing 747-400s. The company has also confirmed that capacity for the winter timetable on short and medium routes would be reduced by 5 aircraft, and that the group will bring forward the allocation of 9 additional Airbus A350-900s to leisure carrier Discover Airlines, all of which it hopes will significantly help to combat the effects of its current challenges. The company has said it is working with CityLine employees to find them roles elsewhere in the group. I did say that we would see significant fallout as a result of the war on Iran, and sadly this action is proof of that. It's a grim day indeed. The eternal challenge for airlines who provide long-haul services is how to keep economy class passengers comfortable in fairly cramped conditions. Air New Zealand, who by virtue of their geographic location are certainly no strangers to this conundrum, and have worked hard over recent years to address this by introducing its Sky Couch, which enables customers in economy to effectively lie flat across a row of seats, something that fellow Star Alliance member United Airlines now intends to replicate. The Kiwi flag carrier, however, is about to take this to the next level with the introduction of what it calls the Economy Sky Nest, which the airline will start selling from the 18th of May, ready for its in-service rollout in November with the arrival of the carrier's new 7879 Dreamliners. The Skynest is a group of 6 fully lie-flat pods that customers can reserve for 4-hour sessions at a cost starting from $495 New Zealand dollars. And for anyone that has seen a crew rest area on board a long-haul aircraft, you'll see the similarities. I certainly can. And we think this is a bit of simplistic genius, as despite the price sounding high, when compared with business class fares, it's a snip, and will in theory enable at least 18 customers to get a bit of shut-eye during a 12-hour flight. Do let us know what you think of this rather interesting concept. Does it have wings? Do let us know. That's all for this week. Thanks for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you again on Monday when we'll be bringing you our usual routes roundup. Until then, have a great weekend. See you soon.
We look forward to seeing you again next week. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to Air News Daily to stay up to date with all the latest news from the commercial aviation world.